About a year ago, I started following a case, the Daybell case. Missing Tylee Ryan and Lori Vallow. Missing kids, doomsday mom, none of it made sense. Over the last year, I have gotten a lot of information from a lot of people. Right now, today, I am going to start a series of videos putting all of that together. And this is part one. I want to give you the background of how Lori and Chad came to have this belief system, this horrific belief system that actually wound up being a tragedy where 2 children were murdered, where 2 spouses were murdered. So welcome to Left Undone, Incomplete Investigations. I'm Kathryn. Justin Lum posted a letter or an email that was sent from Chad to Lori. In this letter, it was 7 things that they were going to need to accomplish together. Didn't make a whole lot of sense, but I saved it. 7 missions to accomplish together. 1, translate ancient records. 2, write the book about the translation process. 3, identify locations in Northeast Arizona for white camps. 4, presidency of the Church of the Firstborn. 5, help establish the food distribution as the tribulations start and delegate. Number 6, ordain individuals to translation as the camps begin. And number 7, provide supplies to righteous members of families. So how did Chad and Lori come to believe that they are the king and queen, that they're the head of the 144,000? Just know, due to all the craziness surrounding the Daybells, the word cult has been put out there quite a bit. It's not necessarily being talked about now, but when you dig deep into this information, it really makes sense that they were part of a cult. It's not LDS, that's not the cult, and it's not preparing a people, that's not the cult. They were referred to as a doomsday couple because in a lot of ways, they were about doomsday. And they caused doomsday. They caused their own doomsday. They're in jail, and doomsday of their poor little children, Lori's children. Sometimes the human brain can be very swayed very easily, very manipulated. Like, I just wonder how much Chad Daybell's children have been fed this stuff. And Tammy, did she believe any of this? But I think this sort of came up in the last 5, 6, 7 years. So I don't think it was always Chad's belief system. I think he decided that he was more important by falling into the trap of this belief system. And he didn't make it up, from what I'm understanding. It came from a lot of things put together. A lot of people wondered if Chad was the leader of this cult and if more people were involved. This ideology came from somewhere. A Hydra cult is basically how it's being explained to me. It is many heads on the beast. So here's the cult, and you got all these heads, right? And when you cut off one head, 2 more pop up in its place. So when a new head kind of pops up in this Hydra cult, new ideas come into play. And these ideas became the accumulation of what happened in the end that got Chad and Lori in jail. And their spouses dead, and their children, and Lori's children dead. All these brilliant minds, that's sarcasm, came together and came up with this, oh, I like that idea, I like this idea. This person explains to me the oldest idea, the beginning of this thought process, was something called the call out. Before we get into that, if you haven't heard of this forum, this LDS forum for people that want to prepare for emergencies, prepping, the LDS Church has always said, you know, you should be prepared for emergencies, for the end of times, whatever. You know, I have my earthquake kit. I'm not LDS, but it's common sense to have some preparedness. Batteries, flashlights, food, water, you know, all that. So that isn't unusual. A forum called Daybell was made. And a man named Roger K. Young, he started Daybell. Since we started getting into all this, we heard of it being run, managed, owned, whatever, by a guy named Christopher Parrott. Christopher Parrott was the biggest cheerleader of Chad and Lori while they were in Hawaii, calling Kay and Larry, you know, crazy grandma, whatever, like stuff like that. Really not nice at all to the Woodcocks, who really just wanted to know where their poor little JJ was, and Tylee. So Christopher Parrott was like singing the praises of Chad and Lori all along. He is the main guy for Daybell. Daybell is a place where people would come and share their dreams and visions and talk about prepping. And they will also talk about this call out. Believers of the call out believe that before the tribulation period in the book of Revelations begins, that they will be this call out. We've heard Julie Rowe mention the call out, and she talks about it in her crazy voicemail, the one that everybody thinks is code. We've had Adam Vance on, and he's cleared that up, that it was not code, it was a voicemail to him. They believe that a group of righteous people will be asked to leave their home, and they will travel to these special mountain camps. And they believe these mountain camps are set up by the LDS Church through the mountains of the West, the Intermountain West. Now, there are variations, they say, of how this will happen, but most talk about it happening during a special Sunday meeting at church. And now only those that meet the requirements will be able to be involved. The requirements, they do vary a little bit. Some say you have to be a upstanding member of the church, active member of the church, a temple recommend, and the other is to have a year's supply of food, storage, and be prepared for this time when you will not be able to go to stores, you will not be able to get food. You have to have this abundance of stuff, food, everything ready for this end of times. One of the supplies that they need to have is a tent, a nice tent, like a nice tent that they can live in. They claim that people that attend this meeting will be given special instructions. And these instructions will come across a broadcast to all the churches, and the broadcast will be by the prophet. At that point, they will be given the rest of the day. Go ahead home, folks. You got the rest of the day to go get ready. So they're all going to go home. They're going to pack up all the stuff that they have prepared for this tribulation time. And a semi-truck is going to come the next day. They're going to put all their preparations in the semi-truck. And then they will get on buses and be transported to these camps, white camps. Remember, in Lori and Chad's 7 missions to accomplish together that Chad sent Lori, one of the things was identify locations in Northeast Arizona for white camps. From what I'm being told, Chad is a big believer in the call out, and he writes about it in his books. From what I'm being told, the beliefs surrounding the call out don't come from LDS doctrine. They come from people who have these visions. And the people with the visions claim that they know about this call out. There was a woman by the name of Sarah Menet, M-E-N-E-T. She claims she had a near-death experience during a failed suicide attempt. And after that, had these visions. So Roger K. Young, who was the original guy that started Daybell, he promoted Sarah's book heavily on the Daybell forums. People in the Daybell forums could purchase her books, and then eventually, you know, Julie Rowe's books were there and Chad's. So because of the nature of the call out, Daybell became a forum mostly dedicated to this preparation and had a heavy reliance upon these visions and dreams that the members of the forum would share. And there were other forums, not just AVAL, there are other forums of this type, but a lot of it would trickle over from AVAL to these other forums. In 2006, there was a man by the name of Denver Snuffer. He wrote a book called The Second Comforter. In it, he claims that he had a visitation with Christ and gained his calling and election. He then began teaching his formula to others. His book started to get really popular, but he became really hostile to the LDS church leadership, and he was excommunicated. That happened in 2013. During that time, another book became very popular. The name of that book was Visions of Glory, and it was written by a man by the name of John Pontius, Pontius. It came out in 2012. And this book are the visions of near-death experiences by a man named Spencer, but his real name is Thomas Harrison. The visions mostly surrounded Underworld and Spencer's special role. And if you stick around long enough, you will see that all the people that are kind of the Hydra heads of this cult, they all claim some special role or special mission or special role for the special mission, as Lori did. She thought she was the head of the 144,000. Visions of Glory was loved by many, many people in these prepper groups, AVAL. LDS members say, yes, there was some very big doctrinal errors in the book. Those errors, were pointed out, and John, the author, died, and Spencer decided to blame all the errors on John. So all during this time when that book was gaining popularity and people were really interested in all this was going on, there was a person by the name of, they used the handle Fellow Dreamer in the AVAL forums. And Fellow Dreamers started corroborating things like the call out. Fellow Dreamer saw the call out. Fellow Dreamer knew when this was going to happen. She also started seeing things that were in the book, The Vision of Glory. Oh yeah, I saw that too. And she would say she had these same visions. She'd also pull things from the headlines and say she had visions of that. Fellow Dreamer, if you haven't guessed it by now, was Julie Rowe. Fellow Dreamer, intrigued Chatty Daddy, Chad Daybell. He thought she was just amazeballs, I guess. He got in contact with her and they wrote her near-death experience. Her first near-death experience book was called A Greater Tomorrow. Her book got very popular. It spread all over AVAL and the LDS Facebook groups, and Julie Rowe was a hit. People were buying her books. They were giving copies to family members. I mean, this is like the best YouTube video going viral. Julie Rowe's book went viral in these communities. So the person that sent me all this information and explained all this to me said she was a member of LDS forums for a long time and she had never seen anything like this. She said also, Julie Rowe didn't just write her book about her visions, about the call out, but she was a student of somebody called Bradley Nelson. Bradley Nelson is an emotion code practitioner. Emotion code is energy healing, and the technique was discovered by Dr. Bradley Nelson that uses Dr. Brad's discovery of the heart wall as the main influence to our health, happiness, success, and relationships. So Julie was a student of Dr. Bradley Nelson, who taught the emotion code, which is energy healing. A lot of women in these groups, they started getting into this energy healing because Julie Rowe said God told her to do it. And she also explained that it was a special healing gift. This energy healing was going to be used while they were in these white camps to help people. After all that, the LDS church gave Julie Rowe the boot. Sorry, not welcome here anymore. You are excommunicated. I don't really like giving Julie Rowe any attention, but all this kind of snowballs into what happened in the end with Tylee and JJ and Lori and Chad's beliefs. And Julie Rowe is also a huge believer in multiple mortal probations, which is like reincarnation. Except for, as Julie Rowe put it, she won't come back as a dog, a butterfly, a bird, or a cat, or anything, or a man. She'll always be a female, a woman, when she comes back in her multiple mortal probations, which I am being told the LDS Church does not believe in this. Now, my subscriber that sent me this information said the thing about Julie Rowe is she has to bandwagon. She jumps on the bandwagon. Whatever works at the moment for Julie Rowe is what Julie Rowe does. And we've seen that clearly in the year that we followed this. Oh, Chad, the kids are fine. They're in a happy place. He would never hurt them. Tammy came to me in spirit and told me this and that, and she is happy, and Chad would never hurt Tammy, and Chad would never hurt the children. And then, oh. Hey, Nancy Grace, yeah, Chad attacked me, Chad abused me, molested me, whatever she said. We've seen that over the last year. If you follow this case close enough, you know that Julie Rowe is a bandwagoner. You know whatever the narrative that Julie works for her to make some money at the moment or whatever, that's what Julie Rowe seems to do. Just from what we're seeing, right? In my opinion. My subscriber said, you know, multiple mortal probation seems to be a belief system in this Hydra cult. So then Chad met another guy, Hector Sosa. He also claimed to be a visionary. And Chad published his visions as well. Now, she goes on to say there's so many heads in this Hydra cult. You have a man named Abraham Galida, who is a wannabe church scholar. And he spread the idea that there will be a Latter-day Saints Davidic servant who will come from outside of the church, and he will come in and he will set everything straight. So there's a guy by the name of Sean Little Bear. He claims to be the one who can bring the book of Lehi from his native tribe to the church, as well as bring the Ark of the Covenant from its hiding place to the new temple of Jerusalem, because he has this special bloodline and calling to do this. Then there is a guy by the name of Mike Stroud. Mike Stroud was excommunicated as well. He is actually a retired seminary teacher, and he's also a believer of the Denver Snuffer doctrines. He believes the doctrines of how to gain your calling and election by being personally taught by Jesus Christ himself. And that, he says, then when that happens, you become a translated being and one of the 144,000 that are spoken of in the book of Revelations that are to lead everyone into the new world. And again, if you remember the 7 things I told you in the beginning, Chad sent Lori a message that said, translate the ancient records, write the book about the translation process. So when all this happens, Mike Stroud believes that when that happens, you become this translated being. And one of the 144,000, right? Spoken of in the book of Revelation. He also teaches that men need to use their priesthood more fully so that they can open portals, where have we heard this before? So that they can open portals of travel and command the elements. Portals. So do you see how it's all making sense? Like Lori and Chad have these belief systems, but one came from this person believes in translated, he also believes in the portals, and it all comes together to make sense that this is a cult. Mike Stroud also teaches a deliverance doctrine, and that all sickness, physical or mental, is because you're possessed. Where we heard this before, JJ was possessed, he was climbing the cabinets and yada, 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 right? He's a zombie. He says, so to heal, He was teaching men to give what he called quorum blessings, which is a group of 4 men who are fully using priesthood and aware, and to cast the demons out and then pronounce healing upon people. Stroud is a huge believer in that book that I told you about, Visions of Glory. So Mike Stroud started a podcast where he gave his interpretation of the Book of Mormon based on the stance of Denver Snuffer and Spencer's beliefs. And Mike Stroud also teaches that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is a telestial church, and that when you get your calling and election via his methods, then you're entering a terrestrial church, which is called the Church of the Firstborn. Now we go back up to Chad's list to Lori, and it says, number 4, presidency of the Church of the Firstborn. This Church of the Firstborn apparently isn't an actual church among these groups. It's more of a title and a status symbol. Like, you guys are all just, regular LDS people, but we're in the Church of the Firstborn. We're so special, kind of thing. Like, that's what I'm getting from this. If you look at Mike Stroud's teachings, they're very much in line with what we've heard Lori and Chad say. Multiple probations, portals, Church of the Firstborn, translated beings, head of the 44th, that one, head of the 144,000. She says there's so many other people in these circles, but this gives us an idea of what went on, what's going on, and who the players are. That this became this Chad and Lori Daybell cult. According to us, because that's who we know, that's who they were looking for, that's whose children were missing. Could have gone in their direction if somebody else's children were missing, or if somebody else had murdered their wife or something like that. But these are the players that we know about, and these are the ones behind bars. During all of this, a group called Preparing a People came about. And there were already conferences going on among the LDS prepper groups, but one was put on by the Firm Foundation, which was headed by a man named Rod Meldrum. Again, allegedly another wannabe church scholar who is known by what's called the Heartland Theory. Basically, he believes that the Book of Mormon geography is set in North America, not South America. So this subscriber said the biggest problem with Rod Meldrum is he became fixated by this and allowed himself to kind of become affiliated with Preparing a People and all these crazy groups, and then took on some of their ideology. At some point, allegedly, his wife was an emotion code practitioner, so energy healer as well. So Mike and Nancy James run Preparing a People conferences. Mike and Nancy James, Rod Meldrum, and Sean Littlebear, they thought they found the 116 missing pages of the Book of Mormon. Meldrum became super obsessed with proving his theory that he just started publishing anything and everything that made him look right. Meldrum's conferences became super popular, and Mike and Nancy James set up Color My Media, and they began organizing conferences where all the people above, came and taught at these conferences, these Preparing People conferences. So Chad and Julie and Sean and Rod and Mike and all these people, they would come and teach at these Preparing People conferences. And then they started podcasts. They had seminars, they had courses, they had special video series that you could buy. And they were extremely close to Chad Daybell. At this point, Chad was now claiming that he had near-death experiences and visions as well. Me too. Me too. That happened to me too. That happened to me too. So now Chad's in on the visions and near-death experiences. And at that point, Lori Vallow was doing her podcasts for Preparing People. At this point, people in AVAL and Facebook LDS groups or these prepper groups, these forums, they started referring to Chad and Julie Rowe as prophets with a small p. President Nelson has a capital P. So they had little p's and they're small p's, but they're prophets. So all these people started looking at them as visionaries and prophets. But she goes on to tell me in this email, not the same way as you might believe. She says, it's important to understand this because this is how the Hydra cult operates. By having multiple little p prophets, so when they lose one, there are others in place and others waiting in the wings to join. People in these groups also think that all the known false prophets, Snuffer, Rowe, Stroud, they all started out legit, but then became deceived later on. So the people will still hold on to the initial teachings because initially they thought these people were all okay, but then they got deceived. So initially they were okay, so what they taught in the beginning was okay, but then they got deceived. She also says every once in a while people let it slip that there's some strange things going on in the inner circles of these core Hydra head people. She said there's multiple cults of personality going on simultaneously, but getting solid information is really difficult. So she explains how do people get sucked into this? Like, how does this even happen? She said friends or family, they bring them in. They use emotionalism, they use fear, especially they latch on to the last days fear. You know, we want to be one of those people. We need to be prepared. Fear. She also says pride is a big thing. She says that members are being told they can be saved from the doomsday destruction, but it goes far beyond that. She said it goes into the next life salvation, and that is what they're all about. After reading a Preparing a People course on how to have visions and visionary dreams, they'll use people such as Korihor. Korihor is a Book of Mormon Antichrist. It compares to those who don't believe in their dreams. And remember, Melanie Gibb actually called Lori that in that recorded conversation with her and Chad. Lori got mad. That was played in court. Remember that? The preliminary hearing. They use a lot of out-of-context scripture and church leader quotes. And they'll redefine words. She says, for example, like meditation. She said they'll use quotes like talking about how great meditation is, but then define this as the same thing as Eastern meditation, which it is not. She says, and then they set the definition of ideas spoken, and they said she says it's pretty insidious when you look at it. They will also drop names to make what they look more legit. They got a message at one point that Nancy James sent them when they spoke out against Sean Little Bear. She says it's a really great example of the tactics that are used. She says Nancy James brings up a position her mother had in order to further her agenda. She brings up how her grandfather knew President Benson. She brings up a general authority's name to add credibility. No proof, just name dropping. She then brings up how his nephew is a bishop, calling dropping. So she says many of these things are brought by members because they are too trusting of anyone claiming to be a member of the church, or because someone told them someone involved was a bishop, or someone knew a general authority. People claim energy healing is good because this prophet or that prophet does it, with no real proof. She says even if Nancy James' grandfather knew President Benson, does that actually excuse the false doctrines she is disseminating, which is no. And then she goes on to say members of the church need to heed these warnings. Matthew 7:15, beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. Or Acts 20:29, For I know this, that after my departure, savage wolves will come in among you, not sparing the flock. Then she says that, you know, they'll say there may be something from Satan come, like a counterfeit dream, but in the dreams and visions course from preparing a people, you see that they say that most dreams come from God. They're trying to get you to let your guard down, she says. You know, this is just her message to people. Just because a member is trying to sell you something, it doesn't mean you have to buy it. Be very careful who you trust and stick to sound doctrine. And just a little more, because I'm going to go to part 2 after this because this is long enough, but someone had pointed out that, you know, the LDS Emotion Code Healing Exposed. There's a Facebook group called LDS Energy Healing Emotion Code Exposed. And all these people kind of believe the same thing with a little variation. They believe in the LDS church, but they believe they are being given revelation to some higher law. And again, that goes right back to this whole thing like, oh, Church of the Firstborn, you're just a little more important than all the peons down there. You know, they're just not as special as you. And she says, that's why you were told to lie, or from these groups, these fringe groups, you're told to lie and do whatever you have to do to keep your temple recommend. She says you can go to the website, you can read about this. So that's the background on how this 7-letter list came together for Chad and Lori, because they are all part of this belief system that was like different people put in their little beliefs and woohoo, this is what we got. So Chad and Lori, there's 7 missions. We'll just go over it one more time and then we'll wrap up. 7 missions to accomplish together. Justin Lum had posted this last year. 1, translate ancient records. 2, write the book about the translation process. 3, identify locations in Northeast Arizona for white camps. 4, presidency of the Church of the Firstborn. 5, help establish food distribution as the tribulations start and the delegate. 6, ordain individuals to translation as the camp begins. And 7, provide supplies to righteous members of families. Okay, we'll keep going with this because I swear to you, I have probably 20 pages of emails that dig into some of this and tell us a lot of stuff. And people that knew people. I am going to talk to you about people that personally knew Melanie Gibb. People that knew Alex Cox. People that knew Joe Ryan. People that knew Lori Daybell. I got a lot, you guys. I've been sitting on it for a long time, and I think it's time to go ahead and share some of this because I will not give anyone's names. I will keep everybody anonymous, but there's a lot of people that have contacted me, and so I'm going to go ahead and start this series on this, and I hope you will continue to watch. So this is end part 1. All my emails, whatever I want to call it, the story behind the story. Thank you for watching Left Undone. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and join us on Saturday mornings when we go live at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. If you're new here, please hit the subscribe button and the bell so that you know when I post a new video. And thank you so much for watching, and thank you for watching Left Undone. I'm Kathryn. Be safe, stay well. Bye-bye.